And here we go, 1937. So 37 actually, as far as like historical events, is pretty much jam-packed. It was a pretty interesting time in the world overall. If you know American culture in particular, then you'll know about characters like Daffy Duck or Popeye. Daffy Duck was started in 37. He made his debut. Popeye had a little statue built to him by spinach growers in 37, and other pop culture things like that were going on in 37 that are still sort of things that are loosely known in the U.S. So, like, Ted Williams was playing baseball, so was Joe DiMaggio. Babe Ruth was still an active public figure. Things like that, all still at least somewhat known by generally any person born in the U.S. anyways. In Nicaragua, you had the famous Somoza regime take over. Well, Nicaragua's over here, right there. And if you play games like Tropico or something, maybe you've heard about them, or if you happen to be Nicaraguan, probably you would know. Not so well known on the throughout the rest of the world, unless you have a particular interest in the period, or in Latin America generally. Also in 37, Hitler had a secret little meeting, I think it was in November, but I could be wrong, with his generals to tell them that he was ready to go to war and would like to do so very soon, and to begin preparations for it. In the Soviet Union, things were going pretty bad. Karl Radek was put on trial after the Bukharin trial. They all got sentenced. Yagoda, who I didn't remark on when he was an available minister. Mobile warfare, where are you? Okay, there we go. So we have that. That's still there. I gotta figure out what I'm doing. And, well, geez. We just keep getting constantly interrupted and I'm trying to talk. Okay. So, Yagoda was the guy with, like, the Hitler stash that was security minister. You can look him up on the internet if you're, like, ultra curious about him. But, there we go. That should shape things up. He ended up getting replaced. It isn't in this game. I don't know why he used to be. He used to be in the game, but then in, like, for the Motherland or something, they got rid of him. But Yagoda got sentenced for being anti-Soviet, and there was another odd part of a lot of the Soviet investigations were that they would often include not only political crimes, but usually other crimes along with the political crimes. And Yagoda was either hinted that he was a rapist or something like that. They said that he had a huge collection of women's underwear, and so that's kind of an odd thing for a secret policeman to have. Now, contrary to what happened in real life, Republican Spain just won the Civil War. The Republicans lost to Franco, so I have to make a decision here. They're pretty strongly allies right now. They used to get an event that would make them pretty Soviet. I wouldn't mind them being Soviet, but I don't really have the ability to do that. Let's have a look at what they've got their government as here. Because I wouldn't mind sticking them over there. No, there aren't any. There's just a bunch of liberals and social democrats. So, nothing good there. And even some conservatives. So, hey, look at that. So, we'll leave them be. Spanish Civil War was pretty ugly. But yeah, they, so, back to Yagoda. So, Yagoda's kind of that sort of a figure. Nobody really knows what it is exactly he did. and he was replaced by this guy named Yezov. I actually have a propaganda pamphlet around here somewhere about Iron Yezov. And that's a reference to Felix Dzerzhinsky, who was head of the secret police during Lenin's time. And he was called Iron Felix, and Yezov, it was reference to that. And Yezov oversaw pretty much the majority of the purges and all like the really bad stuff that went on. Like arrest quotas, that every little region in the USSR had certain like a quota of people who were anti-Soviet that were to be arrested. And he oversaw that. It was Ukrainians were targeted as well, in particular, and different groups of people throughout the USSR, as well as different religious minorities were targeted as well. Oh, and the Hindenburg went down. It was in the U.S., and the Hindenburg was a hydrogen balloon, and it was pretty bad. So, oh, the humanity is the quote that was born of that. And so it was a bad time in the Soviet Union. Yezov was eventually removed. It was basically implied that he was a spy all along, and that he had made the purges so bad so as to ruin the Soviet Union. And so he too was killed, as were lots of people who worked under him and were involved in the purges. See if we've got... Nope. A lot of people that were involved in the purges also ended up going down. Yezov was an interesting character for a few reasons, in that apparently as a human person, like if you just met him, he was a real nice guy. He even adopted some children, and they liked him so much. The kids that he adopted, as a father, that after the fall of the Soviet Union, and also after Stalin, there was a drive to rehabilitate people that had been falsely accused of crimes. And Yezov was brought forward by his adopted children because he was not a Japanese spy. It was just, that was just a convenient reason to get rid of him. But because of how many bad things he did during the purge years, he wasn't granted rehabilitation. So, and again, Litvinov's still the foreign minister, but I changed him for this. Kalinin's a good old man. He was more the public face of the regime. Like, people could go and talk to Kalinin. You couldn't just go and talk to Stalin. Shaposhnikov, I'll talk about him later. And the other interesting thing is this Chief of the Navy thing. Basically everyone who was made Chief of the Navy got executed at some point or another, and it was pretty well known that if you got made head of the Navy in the Soviet Union, your time on Earth was limited. And the reason they did that is because it would remove you from wherever you were. So say you were an admiral down in Sevastopol, and you were really popular, and Stalin didn't like you for some reason. Then you would have to come work in an office in Moscow, all your buddies are gone, and you're gonna get executed. So, a lot of these guys get axed, and the game doesn't really mention that too much. Also, there was a lot of topsy-turvy stuff in the Air Ministry. I should mention this. Yakov Alkinsis is a Latvian guy, or was, and he's still alive, but he was killed in the purges. They don't remove him from the game. Amelia Earhart is also lost. She was a great female aviator, and there was also female aviators in the USSR and throughout the world. There was a French lady whose name I always forget, was also quite popular. But This is when, in 1937 is when Amelia Earhart disappeared. So, it was pretty crazy in the Soviet Union. Killed the military, a whole bunch of people getting arrested left and right. You had the Scottsboro trial in the U.S. The first Social Security check is issued in the U.S. So, like, it was a big year for stuff. And Guernica happened in 37, and also, I imagine we should start seeing it soon, the Marco Polo Bridge incident happened in 37 as well, and that started World War II in Asia. It doesn't look like it's happening yet, but the Japanese basically set up a conspiracy theory false flag attack on the Chinese and used it as an excuse to invade China. So that should start soon. There was a lot going on in the Middle East during this time, particularly in Palestine, which, again, has been in the news quite a lot recently, but a lot of the early sort of Palestinian political stuff started in 37, 35, 36, that era is when they tried to assert themselves. And Pan-Arabism and the flag. If you notice, a lot of Middle Eastern countries, minus Saudi Arabia, all have a common theme to their flags. That's the Pan-Arab flag, and that really got big around this time in the early mid-30s and also later. So yeah, it was a busy time, and also Italy got kicked out of the league, or it left, and Italy doesn't get talked about very much in the American history context or in American history classes for this era. Mainly, like, the fare that I got growing up was all about Hitler. It was like 24/7 Hitler. And although that's not necessarily an awful way to teach the history of the period, since, at least from a European perspective, that was kind of the big thing. It's a little bit different elsewhere. But Italy played its role. Like, Italy is a big, powerful country. There was a lot going on there. And also, a lot of people, particularly right-wingers in America, try to draw a difference between the National Socialism of Germany and the fascism of Italy, but really there wasn't that much of a difference to be had. And although Mussolini didn't go after Judaism, they did not like Africans. And they had to ban, or they did ban, marriage between Ethiopians and Italy, which they called Abyssinia then. Okay, so we got all this 1938 stuff cropping up now. I suppose we ought to get that built. Alrighty. Oh, Mongolia wants stuff. Yeah, I'll give you SU2s. Japan has joined the Axis. So that's just ducky. Can I get... There we go. So we're gonna go to a war economy. And that should pretty much be our last law here. So there we go. I can build a ton more factories. There we are. Look at that. Oh, we got a whole bunch of them finished too, so just gonna plop them down out here in Siberia. I used to stack a whole bunch in Magnitogorsk just to please myself, in Chelyabinsk too, which was another pretty big industrial city built during this time, but oh wow, look at that. I think that's, no, that's some other place. I remember the shape of Magnitogorsk. There's actually an error on this map where there are two provinces named Magnitogorsk. It's like they couldn't really decide where it was supposed to be on their projection. That's probably quite enough factories, so we'll get started building other stuff. And armor. We need to start putting out tanks. Now, another misconception about the history of this era is that the Soviet Union didn't have tanks. Well, that's categorically false. They did have tanks. They had lots of tanks. They had more tanks than the Germans did when they eventually invaded in 1941. But their tanks weren't very good relative to the more advanced German counterparts. So they were basically useless. And there was even a joke in the German military that all you had to do was spit on a tank and it would blow up on a Russian tank. So that was mainly the problem. The tanks that came out after, though, were pretty good. Now you'll note if you played the game before, you see I'm not instituting a 3-year draft. That's got its ups and downsides to it, but for the main, it's mostly all upside. The reason I do that is because volunteer units build much faster than units that are drafted. So you have a definite incentive to build volunteered units, so all your expensive stuff needs to get built when you're in a volunteer state, and then fill it with conscripts. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything, because it seems like I should be researching more stuff, or less stuff. I don't know. Like it's just weird. I feel like I'm missing something important because I'm too busy talking. I mean, everything looks okay. Okay, so we'll continue on. So yeah, 37 was a big year. Oh, we're gonna run out of money. I'll have to fix that sooner or later, but not gonna worry about that until 1938, because I don't really need to. Odd-numbered years in this game are also kind of weird, because there's not that much going on. And I don't really need to waste time recruiting officers either, because that volunteer army keeps me from getting very many. So I need to just try and get as much ahead right now as I can, because we're gonna end up behind eventually. Industrial production. Wow, that was speedy. Has that war started yet? It should. Yeah, there we go. So Marco Polo Bridge happened. Japan is invading China. In real life, China held out. But in this game, Japan usually just stomps China. And I don't know why. I've played maybe 6 or 7 little test games to see what the pace of these videos would be, and I don't think Japan ever lost or did poorly. I remember when I first got the game a long time ago, one time did I see Nationalist China actually, like, survive. Also, there used to be an event in the game called the Operation Z. The Soviet Union sent aid to Nationalist China, the same as they did Spain, really, and you used to be able to help them, but not so much anymore, I guess. Nope, Shanxi went down, and Bulgaria canceled my stuff. So yeah, no more Shanxi. The other thing is that in real life, the Communist Chinese did fight the Japanese, but they tend not to in this game. They tend not to do a whole lot of anything. Alright, December comes rolling in. Still not much going on. Marines, hooray! Just try and keep this stuff upgraded as much as possible. And keep putting down factories behind the Urals. And it looks like we've started to reach to where we've made too many factories. The Soviet Union in this game can support like 500 IC, but because I'm using trade for supply purposes, I sell all that stuff, so I end up not being able to support as much IC as I technically could, but I don't have to invest any IC in building supplies for my troops. So, alright, and there we go. So we made it to 1938, and this is where things are going to get kind of interesting, and I'm also going to take maybe more of a quasi-historical turn over what most players pick. So, oh yeah, also, Philippines. Women got the right to vote in the Philippines, comedically enough, in 37. The funny part of it is, they did a plebiscite where women got to vote on whether or not they should have the right to vote. And 90% of women in the Philippines said they should have the right to vote. So, I always thought that was kind of an interesting way to solve the women's suffrage question. So, but anyways, I hope you'll join me again for 1938, and hopefully it'll be a good year.